Hello and welcome to episode 267 of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyTrades. We got a great show planned for you tonight. Today was absolute anarchy, right? Like we have Amari Cooper gets traded, Davante Adams gets traded, Justin Fields gets benched. And Snoog and I are here to literally break down everything to try to get you guys going because we talk about the different quarters of the season. We played quarter one. We're halfway through quarter two of your fantasy regular season. And that's crazy because we got to get you guys into position to absolutely smash. Nobody better to do that with than my main man, Snoog. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, Dad. I'm excited because it's not often we get to see two star receivers get traded mid-season like this, Amari Cooper and Davante Adams, both with new homes, with new elite quarterbacks going from bottom of the barrel, bottom 32 quarterback play to as good as you can friggin' get as number one and number two targets in their offense. It's going to be really fun seeing these two guys thrive on two offenses that are going to be contending for one of the better AFC teams. Jets started off slow, but I think this Adams move is going to help them get back on track. So I'm excited to talk about a lot of the overreactions, who it helps, the boosts, the fallers from these type of trades. But, man, it's getting sweet over here. Justin Fields news kind of shocked me, too, with Russ. So
absolutely. And we're doing this live again. So make sure the guys are following along on YouTube. Hit that smash accept, subscribe button. We gained 100 new followers last week on YouTube alone because we were doing these live streams. I know you guys love them. Come out in droves. We're going to answer as many as we can, but we also got to get the content in there too. So, this week, let's start out with the Davante Adams news because that's the first one that dropped, and that was huge, right? We kind of anticipated it. We always hear these rumors of this guy's going to go here, this guy's going to go there. And Davante Adams, he's already straight up hanging out with Aaron Rodgers. We saw it, on the Pat McAfee show. And there's so much to break down here. I mean, first of all, for me, Aaron Rodgers, I think this kind of rejuvenates him a little bit. He looked good last week over, almost 300 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. The new offensive coordinator, Snoog, Garrett Wilson was getting peppered. Breece Hall week was back, right? Breece Hall looked like himself again with some creative play calls. I think the Davante Adams news makes Breece Hall even better. I think it's going to open up defenses where they're going to have to really respect the hell out of Davante Adams, Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams might as well just pack it in, and Allen Lazard, all these guys. Breece Hall is going to move way up. I have Davante Adams clearly moving up, from going back to Aaron Rodgers as opposed to, Aiden O'Connell. We have Garrett Wilson. I low-key have getting better because in my mind, it's going to be better target volume. We're looking at, as opposed to, I look at this as A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, not light, but plus. So now you have to start, Davante Adams is more of that A.J. Brown. And Garrett Wilson in the slot now is just, this could be A.J. Brown. This could be Antonio Brown type. Like, he could be that good in the slot because he's unguardable. You know what I mean? We have that situation. I'm just excited about this. Let's start out Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Rodgers gets Davante Adams. I think he plays 2 more years now. There's been rumor about that before. I think this really is going to reinvigorate him. What are you willing to pay for Aaron Rodgers in Superflex? Because I was saying 207, 208. I think I'd move it up to about 204, 205 if you're really hungry.
Yeah, I think it's probably that mid to early second round range. He's a top 12 quarterback for the rest of the season, and I think he would be foolish to retire this year. He gets his guys. He gets what he wants. Davante comes. If he retired this year, I would be shocked if he didn't play at least next year too.
Exactly.
Because it takes time for a team to build rhythm, build a connection together. But I think Aaron Rodgers, he's got his guy Lazard now, who's been, if you just look at, if you're confused with Garrett and Davante Adams and the success that they can have together, just look at Allen Lazard's numbers through the first 6 weeks in that number 2 role. Garrett Wilson, nobody on the field can even guard him besides a few cornerbacks in the league that can really give him a good run for their money. Now think about when he's in the slot against number 2 corners as well and linebackers. He's literally going to be like CeeDee Lamb out of the slot. Same type of player, twitchy guy, elite route runner, good after the catch. It's going to be dangerous. Davante Adams is still going to be a beast. He's going to get a ton of... I bet you Davante Adams is going to be like Lazard on steroids. He's going to be the touchdown guy. He's going to get a lot of the volume. But I think Garrett's just going to be a guy that's 8 to 10 catches a game, 90 to 100 yards, maybe squeezes a touchdown. But he's going to be like a Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb light in this offense, I think. I think he's better than Devontae Smith. He's better than Brandon Ayuk and all those high-end number 2, Jalen Waddle. They're not on his level. So I think that this situation long-term isn't going to be that great, but just for right now, I think it's going to help him in the overall offense. Like you said, Breece Hall is going to get a ton of more red zone opportunities. They're going to get there more. They're going to have more successful drives. I don't know how anybody could sit there and tell you that getting a better player to help move the offense and get a legit number 2 receiver is going to make anything worse for the team. Yeah, maybe if he went to the Steelers and it was like Justin Fields is the quarterback, but it's literally one of the best quarterbacks to ever touch the field. He's not the same, but he's still nasty, and he showed that with literally nobody at wide out, like Mike Williams and Allen Lazard running routes. So I'm really excited for it.
I keep seeing these questions, and Snoog, I mean, I know you're not going to like my response, but Justin Kitts just asked, would you trade Alvin for Breece and Mooney? And I saw another one, a guy messaged me. He said, would you trade Alvin for Breece and Kareem Hunt? I'm sorry, but I have Breece Hall over Alvin Kamara rest of the season. With the Olave injury, with what we saw, usage-wise with the Saints this past week, I have Breece over Kamara, but it's not a huge gap. If you get a plus, I think you take it. I just think the offense, the rest of the season is going to be more explosive in New York than it will be in New Orleans. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's kind of where I'm at.
The Saints it was looking amazing for Kamara. He's still going to be great. He's still going to be an elite back.
Still
one of the better ones
top 10 for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I have him still top 5, but I think losing Carr, losing 2 offensive linemen, interior O linemen, and losing Chris Olave like that, at least for this week and maybe next week, it's just the overall offense is going to stink. So it's tough. But Clint Kubiak still wants to run the ball, still wants to get him the ball. He's getting a ton of target volume, so he's still going to be a surefire RB1. But Breece is going to have so much touchdown upside now in an offense where they're going to have these they finally have 2 good weapons. If they trade Mike Williams or keep him and Lazard as field stretchers, the offense is going to be so opened up now that they're going to be able to finally establish that run and not lock down on the run and not have to work. They literally would put 2 people on Garrett Wilson. They'd have a safety over the top shaded to Garrett Wilson's side, and then they'd clinch down on the run, and then the Jets literally couldn't do anything. It'd be check downs all game.
Everyone in the Patreon, and you guys got to get in there. It's absolutely the best place. $5 a month gets you unlimited access to Snoog and myself, baby. All of our stuff. We got you covered. But Snoog, everybody's like, how much further are you moving Garrett Wilson down your rankings? I said, none. I'm not. Like right now, he's my wide receiver 9, and I can't see moving him below, Puka, Rice, Reed, London. I'm just not doing it right now. I mean, I think you're about to see what defenses are going to try to shut down Davante Adams on the outside. He's going to go nuts. He's going to have a higher quality of targets. He's not going to see the doubles. And I think we're going to at least see the same level of what we saw the last couple of weeks. Got a couple more questions. Theo Darling says, Devonta and Gibbs or A.J. Brown and Saquon on a dynasty contender? And for me, I'm smashing A.J. Brown and Saquon. I know they're on the same team. I know the Eagles offense, bounces back from time to time. I hope Sirianni gets fired, but I mean, I would.
Ben Johnson to the Eagles.
I have AJ Brown a lot higher than Devonta Smith in comparison to Saquon to Gibbs. The gap is much different there for me. What's Garrett? Jimmy Thompson says, what Garrett Wilson's dynasty value right now relative to Rashee Rice? And that's a great question, because I think what you're going to see is temporarily right now, I think is your buy window for Garrett Wilson. I think people are going to start to depreciate his value a little bit. And I think people are going to, as the season goes on, Snoog, Rashee Rice is at his peak value. He is right now at that, you and I both have him inside our top 12 to 15 wide receivers. I think I'm still a little bit higher. But every week that's going to get further and further away, where I can see Garrett Wilson. He's not going anywhere. So I think the gap between these guys right now is an early second. I think by the end of the season, it's at least a late first. And I think that's really where we're going to see things change. So if you're a contender right now, I would add a late first to Rashee Rice to get to Garrett Wilson, because you get better pedigree and you have immediate production, as opposed to a lot of people are in that Rashee Rice and they're like, Dad, I can't really get anything. All right, add a first and get A.J. Brown. Add a first and get Nico Collins. Add a first and get Garrett Wilson. Add a first and a little bit more and get Amon-Ra St. Brown, because that's the way you stay relevant. You don't stay relevant by trading Rashee Rice for Brandon Ayuk in a second. That's just meh.
Yeah, I actually helped 2 people out in the Discord, the Patreon. You can sign up. Link in my bio, link in Dad's bio. It's literally just Patreon's the payment service, and then you get the email invite link right to the Discord. 420 plus people in there, talking shop 24/7, trade advice, rankings, weekly rankings for redraft and dynasty. We got our top 50 plus dynasty rankings of all positions, constantly updated every couple weeks. Everything's in there that we got going on there, so it's a lot of fun. But I actually helped 2 people out trade Rashee Rice and flip him into Garrett Wilson. One was Rashee in a second, another one was Rashee a second, and it was Marshawn Lloyd, and he got Garrett Wilson in both deals after the news today. So I was like, that's no brainer to me. You're getting the production. You're getting a player that's better than Rashee Rice as a talent. You can't project really and predict what's going to happen down the road. So just take the better guy now who's younger and just going to be a better player. So I'm just going to take Garrett all day there.
For sure. And then another quick reminder, we are doing super chats now. So if you guys come on here on YouTube, on Twitter, whatever you guys are on, and you guys hit that super chat, we will guaranteed put your trade question up or even break down your roster for a couple of minutes. I mean, we're here to help you guys. That's really what we're here for right now, you know. Card Fetish says, thoughts on Marvin Harrison in redraft? I'm really considering trading him for Garrett Wilson. I have Garrett Wilson above him in redraft. I always have. I think I still do. Right now, you got Marvin had the concussion. Now's a good time to buy Marvin because a lot of people are down because him and Kyler Murray has struggled. I think they put it all together. But the gap between these guys, I think you're going to have to, in redraft, make sure you seriously give yourself a running back downgrade in those kind of situations. But I'm buying Garrett Wilson here if I can do that kind of move. My man, Mr. Happy Gilmore says, moving forward with Davante Adams now, are you consistently starting him over guys like Devonta Smith, T. Higgins, and etc.? So we both agree Garrett Wilson's not really moving. Right now, before the trade, Davante Adams was my wide receiver 34, slightly behind Mike Evans, Ladd McConkey, T. Higgins. I think I'm still starting T. Higgins and Devonta Smith this week over Davante Adams, but I do think down the stretch we are going to see a top 15 to 18 type wide receiver. What do you think, Snoop?
I think he has top 10 upside just because I think he's going to get the same volume plus that Allen Lazard was getting. Garrett Wilson was getting a ridiculous amount of targets. I'd say the best way to look at it is see less Lazard, more of those targets go to Garrett and Adams. And Garrett's ridiculous, like 18 and 20 targets is going to be more split in half. So I think they're both going to get about 9 to 12 targets a game between Adams and Garrett Wilson. I think it's going to flow through them. Like, I think it's just going to be back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Well, I would love to see a lot of motion. I'd love to see both of them playing the slot. I'd love to see them both playing the outside, motioning around. I think it's a great fit. This is a good question by Koch. Adams or Amari rest of the season. I'm going to go with Adams just because he already has that chemistry built. He's still, to me, one of the best wide receivers to play the game. Like, still. Like, he is still insane. He was nasty on the Raiders the past 3 seasons, despite how horrible the quarterback play is. He is going to be an absolute monster there with Aaron Rodgers. I don't even think he was hurt, Dad. I don't know about you, but I think that hamstring stuff was a hoax. Because I've seen so many memes.
It's that Willy Wonka one where he's like walking down with the cane, and then all of a sudden he gets there, he's like kicks it off. You're like, here we go. He's like, I'm ready to go. Yeah, and I think I do like Amari here. I love Amari going to Buffalo because I think this creates
huge boost.
Yeah, he goes from, let's be honest, the worst offense in the league now. Now that Drake May's starting,
the worst.
I think now we have Cleveland Browns are the worst offense. They have a horrible offensive line. I was watching that Eagles game. Deshaun Watson's getting sacked like crazy. Even Jameson Winston was a pipe dream of him just connecting with Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper right now is ranked as the worst wide receiver on ESPN.com with drops and things like that. And a lot of people were messaging me. They're saying, well, you really think Amari's going to come out of this? I'm like, he's going from the worst quarterback in the league to arguably the best in the best situation because there's nothing there in Buffalo that has been working. Now they get Amari Cooper. They have a wide receiver 1. I think this is great for his career because he's locked up for several years. So Buffalo, I mean, this is just like Adams. I think Adams is going to eat for the next 2 years. Amari Cooper is going to eat for the next 2 years. I think Davante Adams is now worth a 110 to 112. And I think Amari Cooper goes from the 208, 209 to I would pay 203. I think that's where I'm
pay
at.
an early second now.
Yeah. I would not
we
pay a
look
first.
At what he did last year. He's still I don't want to say he's at his best, but he's definitely still got a ton of juice where it's like, if you look at what Diggs is doing in Houston, there's no reason Amari and Adams can at least be that in this new offense with a good quarterback. Like,
yeah,
especially with Josh Allen, he's a guy that, I mean, he leaned on Diggs. And if you look at Amari, he plays very similar to Diggs. He wins with his feet. He's an elite route runner. He wins downfield. He's a natural separator. That's what Buffalo has absolutely lacked. If you ask me, I think these are the two most separating. I think these are the two most perfect fits that these two could have gotten for a veteran wideout like that. Like when D-Hop went to the Cardinals with Kyler, when Keenan Allen left to go to the Bears, like when Diggs left to go to the Texans, like usually more times or not, those elite wideouts going to good teams is going to work out. Keenan Allen went to a team crowded situation. Not a great offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, and with a rookie quarterback. He was the one that just got the poop end of the stick, but he has 2 touchdowns in this past game and looked great. So it's looking pretty good there. I love these 2 changes, and especially for me because I have Davante everywhere because I was just he was so cheap going into the season. Everyone's like, the QB play, but now it's like, all right, now he's with Rodgers again. Like, I haven't even tried to shop either of them. I haven't even gotten an offer for either of them, and I got one that was horrible. 8 shares. I have at least 8 shares plus of both of them.
Yeah.
I haven't even seen a trade go down in one of my leagues yet for one of them, so I don't even know what market looks like.
We have a bunch of trades we're going to talk about later. I was offered Dobbs in a second. I said, no, I'm not doing that. Jimmy Thompson wants to know, does Coop now make Kincaid and Keon Coleman dynasty buy lows? Man, okay. So the issue is, and Keon it's been for the entire buy low. They are not separating at all. They have not been using Keon Coleman to his strengths. Hopefully Amari Cooper, because they've thrust him into a role that he was not going to succeed in. I think he's going to be a little bit more of he's going to start seeing a little bit. Needs to be in
that Gabe Davis role.
Yeah, but that's not what they put him in. They tried to put him in that Stephon Diggs role, and that's not it. Now, if he goes into that Gabe Davis role and now Amari takes that Stephon Diggs role, Kincaid, I think, is starting to put it together a little bit more. I am buying low on Kincaid, but Snoog, I think the difference, and a guy asked me in the Discord, he goes, would you trade Ayuk and Kincaid for Bowers? And I said, actually, yes. Give me Bowers. Like, I mean, I know that we said they were close before the season started, but like, dude, you're going to have to add a first onto any tight end, even McBride. If you can use a guy like Brandon Ayuk to tear off of Kincaid to get onto Brock Bowers, I'm going to smash that all day long. And that's just something that you just can't, you can't get away from. Dave Faber just asked, any thoughts on Cooper Kupp potentially coming back? I've got Olave, need to start Kupp this week. So I don't think he's back this week. I think it's going to be next week. But Cooper Kupp is in that role, Snoog, of these other 2 guys we just talked about, is late first, early second, gonna win you a championship. And if out of the 3, I think Cooper Kupp's the highest. Yeah, I would have Kupp, then Adams. Yes. If he's healthy and comes back,
healthy, he's a top 5 wide receiver, especially with Puka L. If he's healthy and fully ready to go with Stafford, he is a guy that if I'm 5-0 or 5-1 or 6-0 or 4-2. Especially in redraft, I'm going out and I'm seeing what I can get Cooper Kupp for. If I can get Cooper Kupp in Dynasty, I'm going to the team, hopefully looking for a team that's 2-4 or 1-5 or 3-3 and getting a little finicky. Buying Amari, buying Davante, buying Cooper Kupp, buying Tyreek Hill. Like, buy these guys in these Dynasty leagues.
Tyreek Hill's another one.
If you have an extra first laying around and you're like, I think we're at the point now where we could kick the tires on that first if you have a pretty good understanding of your team and go buy Cooper Kupp and Amari for a first and like a couple thirds. Like a trade like that is something that you could probably get done, or a first and a second for Amari and Cooper, or a first and a second for Davante and Cooper. Trade like that, or Tyreek Hill too. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if 2 out of the 4 of those, or 3 out of the 4 of those vets are all top 10 to 12 in points per game rest of the season. maybe like week 8 on, because I think it's going to take Amari, especially, a little bit of time to get used to that new offense. Adams, I think, will get pretty quickly back on rhythm with Adams or with Rodgers within a game or two. But Tyreek, he just gets his quarterback back, and Cup just gets healthy, and then it's good to go from there. So I think, like we did all offseason, Dad, buying Joe Mixon, buying Alvin Kamara, buying James Conner, buying Derrick Henry, loading up on these vets. I think it's time now where we have that buy window to do the same thing for the vet wideouts.
Yep. Well, and I'm glad you brought up Joe Mixon, because I just posted a thing today. Running backs I value over Joe Mixon right now for the rest of the season. Henry, Saquon, Kyron, Brees, Bijan, Walker, Kamara, Gibbs. That's it. He's my RB9 rest of the way. I agree. Paying $201 for a Joe Mixon. I would consider a 26 first, but I'm not doing a 25. I think Joe Mixon, right now, people are not paying attention that he's putting up 120 plus scrimmage yards a game in elite level offense with elite level usage. Man, you could still get him for less than a first, and you're going to do it. I think the next question we had, and I put it out there, you guys came out in masses. I was like, hey, let's get some questions going. Let's get some dynasty trades. You guys came out hungry. The first one we had, it was actually in Smash Accept, one of our Smash Accept leagues. Davante Adams, Tyler Lockett, and Isaiah Likely, or Chase Brown, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Jaheim Sanders.
I'm taking
it one side. Well, no, Adams, not Mixon. I'm sorry.
I mean, yeah, that's what I meant.
The Adams side for a contender, he was all in. The other side for Jackson Smith-Njigba, and this is Snoog.
Context always matters.
6 games in, this is the best time to trade. This is where your leagues should go from a bunch to separating at the top and the bottom, right? All your good leagues, these guys should be doing that. Tweeter 654-32101, love that. He put got an offer right now, Derrick Henry for a mid first, smash or not. I'm 0-5 or 0-6. Yeah, you trade Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
You trade Derrick Henry for any first if you are 0-6, if you're 1-5. I always try to get that throw in. Like, I've been getting guys to throw in Emmanuel Wilson, throw in, early on in the season, it was like throw in to Tank Bigsby. Now all of a sudden he's panned out a little bit more, and then you sell him. You just get that added piece on there. But Derrick Henry right now, Snoog, if you have the 109 to 112, I'm sorry. We said don't pay a first for a guy his age. Just do it. Like, just do it. He is a touchdown machine right now. Like, he is literally going to put your team on his back and carry you there. And I think that's really the difference maker with him right now.
One thing I love to look at too, like when I make a trade like that, I'm in my head, I'm like, okay, if I make this trade, I win the championship, I win the pot. Say it's a $50 buy and you make like $600, 12-man league. You're basically playing for free for like
5
years or 5 years, yeah. Like you're literally
math. We do analytics and we do tape breakdown. Sometimes the math ain't mathin'.
No, it would be 12
we're
years.
Good there. What's that?
It would be 12 years.
Yeah.
Because you pay $50 for every year, which is $600.
If you'd be winner take all.
That's how I look at it. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I always do winner take all usually. But then now I'm like, okay, that's the case I'm in. So it's worth getting that championship and you get the bragging rights. But I just not that it matters. Keep trade cuts just all over the place. Just like a fun spot to look at and just see how overreactionary and the dynasty market and what they're overreacting with. Amari Cooper dropped 8 spots. I don't know how that's possible. Davante Adams has dropped 6 spots.
Yeah, we don't pay attention to that.
I don't know what everybody's sipping on, but if you got people leveraging keep trade cut against you, go use that and go buy those guys.
Chan Hughes wants to know late 25 second and Ramondre from Mixon. I'm doing
Mixon.
it. I think Ramondre is another injury away from just kind of blowing out there, and that's on a top contender. Kyle Wynn asks, where do you stand on ETN? Is he a buy low in Dynasty or stay away? If you buy, what's his value? Snoog, the value right now is probably mid-second. Like, it just keeps dipping.
All day.
And
I'll pay that all day.
I'm a little concerned, but you're definitely not selling, right? Like, sometimes in Dynasty, we say every player is price dependent. The only way I'm selling is if I get a first, and I don't think anybody is going to pay a first because they're out of sight, out of mind. He's going to be out this week. He had -0.1. I feel bad for some of you guys because you could have started, Chris Olave and Travis Etienne, someone else had negative points this week. It was not a pretty one. But yeah, if we're buying, I would offer a late second and a Zach Moss type if I'm like trying to buy on somebody that, something that's not all that relevant. And I think you're going to see big rewards for that. I like that. Definitely. Jack Donahue says, as a contender, do I send Gibbs and Reed for Saquon, Amari, and an early second? I'm not, actually. I'm going to roll with Gibbs and Reed here.
Same.
I have Gibbs over Saquon. The early second over Amari. Or the early second Amari does not equal Jaden Reed from me. So I'm just not there. I can't do it.
Yeah,
I got to really roll that way. Cesar Figueroa says, 1 game behind first place. Hold A-Chain or sell him? I'm a little worried about the injury prone. If it's a sell, what should I look for him in Dynasty? So, Snoog, for me right now, what I'm really looking at with the Miami offense, okay, is I'm waiting for week 8. Week 8 is coming around. They say Tua's coming back. If Tua comes back and posts 300 yards and Tyreek has 100 plus and a touchdown and A-Chain has 100 plus and a touchdown, I'm selling it all. Like I love the individual talent, but you are going to you see what this offense does without Tua. I mean, it's a turd sandwich. Like, it is really bad. So without Tua, Tyreek Hill is not even a top 24 wide receiver. Without Tua, Devon A-Chain is not a top 24 running back. Sad as it is, they're just not getting any competent type players. It's not just that they're not having those players. There's no competency at all. So I would flip them then. I would add a first and move from A-Chain to Gibbs. I would try to make a play like that, or I would do the same thing with trying to move Tyreek into someone a little bit earlier. Jay Gondia just put best dynasty creators out there. I love that. We try our best. That's what we're literally here for. Snoog and I eat, sleep, and breathe dynasty fantasy football. That's what gets us going. We're trying to help you guys out in redraft as much as we can, but we are really trying to, and we got the link there down below. It's patreon.com/smash accept. We're trying to give you guys that best content out there is. And there's so many guys that are just doing trades where the way you and I think, we're passing that on to the next guy. We're just saying this is really how we're trying to do things. Justin Kitts again says, have to know I'm in first place, 5-1. I moved Kenneth Walker and A-Chain for Barkley. Did I lose?
Is it redraft?
I believe so.
You probably you lose either way, I think. Especially with
I don't know.
Back.
I mean, we'll see what happens here, but I think Barkley is going to be a true difference maker, but I think you lose out a little bit there. I'm definitely into those kind of, I think we're kind of leaning towards that way. Next one, Carlos Romano, awesome guy on Twitter. I'm in 5-1. My running backs are Bijan, JK, and Javante. Would you buy Chubb for a late second? So Nick Chubb is an interesting one, right? Because Jerome Ford goes down to injury. Deontay Foreman was as worthless as you could possibly be. Amari leaves. And this
offense in the NFL.
Yeah. So, Nick Chubb, I would sell right now for a second plus. If you can add Nick Chubb in a second for any first, I would do it. If I am a strong contender, Nick Chubb is not my guy that I'm buying. I'm going to try to add more, and I'm going to get Joe Mixon. I'm going to try to buy those wide receivers we talked about with Cooper, with Adams, that's really what I'm trying to do. Snoog, are you going out there and actively buying Nick Chubb right now, or are you getting him in a different type way?
Yeah, I would buy him just because of the talent he is for cheap, but I think a second I would have paid before Amari leaving. At this point, I'm probably paying a pair of threes.
Super Hot just put Njoku rocket ship. So someone has to catch passes in Cleveland now. Jerry Jeudy gets a little bit of a bump. I think David Njoku is the biggest recipient here. David Njoku could see top 3 tight end type volume here. And if he stays healthy, I think he's a very great buy. That's a fantastic question. Another question we have here is, would you tear off Marvin Harrison Jr. for Brian Thomas Jr. and a 25 first? And I would. I think right now you just got your buy window again for Brian Thomas Jr. because people don't pay attention, but that Bears secondary, Snoog,
nasty.
Titans and Bears. I'm not touching anybody.
Touchdown pass.
Yeah. Whoever plays the Bears
what did he
or the
put
Titans.
Up? Oh, he had 2.7.
Yeah, it was ugly. But whoever they play,
5.7.
I'm not touching him. Snead shuts down everybody. Who's the Bears' number one corner? I'm not 100% sure, but like that defense is ridiculous. So I am not touching those. You just got a buy window on Brian Thomas Jr. because people don't pay attention to who they were playing. I would make sure I kick the tires and try to make an opportunity to move up there. And Snoog, I mean, I was offering, and I know we couldn't do this a while ago, but would you pay a late first and Ladd McConkey for Brian Thomas Jr.?
Yeah.
Ladd McConkey is kind of a low-key buy, though. He has most targets, most yards. He's starting to get a little bit better, but Brian Thomas Jr., the ceiling is just so much.
The only thing with Ladd is Ladd needs like 9 to 10 catches to be anything, like
or more. Yeah,
he's like Josh.
No, that's it.
He's literally like a Josh Downs. Like he needs so much volume to be good because it's everything's behind like within 8 yards of the line of scrimmage. So it's just interesting, but he's a good player. I like the prospect a lot on him.
Mm-hmm.
The Ladd's definitely a good buy low.
Another question here sent in: Debo or Garrett Wilson rest of the season? It's very close. It really is.
I'm taking Garrett for me.
I am too in a full PPR and 0.5. I might lean Debo just because of the way he plays, but I'm with Garrett Wilson side there as well. You guys aren't even letting me get to the Twitter questions because you guys are so awesome. You're literally just once we get on here, you guys jump on. You're asking so many questions, and we absolutely love that fact. I mean, that you guys get so into it, asking these questions, trying to get things. So I'm going to break out the Twitter questions like we were starting to get to. Next one sent in there from the narrator: Lamar Jackson and Jalen Waddle, or Trevor Lawrence, Will Levis, Rashee Rice, 25 first, 26 first, and another 26 first. So that's 3 firsts on top of Lawrence and Rice for Lamar and Waddle. Lamar is the guy that's going to side. Lamar's going to put you over the top. But what I'm doing here with this trade is I'm saying, I mean, I think Waddle and Rice are pretty even right now for me. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm probably taking Rice though.
I am too, but I think if you say they're even, Lawrence, Levis, and 3 firsts for Lamar Jackson, what I'm doing is I'm going to keep Lawrence, see what happens. I'm going to trade Levis in a first and go get Baker Mayfield and a throw-in running back. You know, like I think Baker Mayfield and Jared Goff are the buys. You don't have to look at a trade like this, Snoog, and say, you know what, I'm gonna do this or that. Sometimes you have these extra pieces on there where you can just throw it in, and we're gonna make some trade offers. You know, we're gonna try to see what we can do on those. Next trade sent in from Mike Aldridge: Jaden Reed in a third or Isaiah Likely in a second. That's a smash. That should be a first. Jaden Reed is that much better. Trey McBride or Mooney Pierce in a first.
I'm taking McBride, but I don't know. If it ain't Brock Bowers or George Kittle, I don't care for him.
Exactly.
Those are the only ones I care about.
D Fox, best point guard. First of all, I'm not going to agree that De'Aaron Fox is the best point guard in the league, but hey, that's fine. That's your Twitter handle. He
is a stud.
He is. He's so fast. I love playing with him in 2K.
I was a big fan of him at Kentucky.
Bijan Robinson or Tyrone Tracy in a mid first, which is somewhere between 105 and 108. He said, I'm rebuilding. He said, I'm rebuilding, but I feel like this is still cheap for the RB1 in Dynasty.
Too cheap.
So
too cheap.
I agree. And then what you do is you flip Bijan for one of these elite level wide receivers. You know what I mean? If you're rebuilding, you wait till Jefferson, Lamb. You might even be able to just do Bijan in a second for Lamb right now. Lamb is a huge buy low. Huge. Yeah. I know the offense is struggling, but they have the number 1 wide receiver schedule rest of season. Go buy CD Lamb. You're going to appreciate it later.
All these bad teams. That's what he always does.
Exactly.
Stat pads against these bad teams.
Zach Morris, 7. Love a little Saved by the Bell. Isaiah Pacheco in a first, or Chubb Montgomery in a second.
That's a goated show. What was it? Sorry. You were getting me all excited about Saved by the Bell.
Dude, I know, man.
Kelly
that show was
Kapowski.
Fantastic. That was my first crush. That was my first. What was yours?
Funny.
What was yours? You were a Topanga guy.
Know. No. I don't even know who my
We're getting a little off topic.
Kid, yeah.
I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna ask Mama.
Probably Alvin Kamara. Nah,
said Alvin Kamara. Isaiah Pacheco in a first, or Chubb Monty in a second.
I'm gonna take the Pacheco side.
Man, I want to buy Monty everywhere though.
People still like Pacheco enough where I could flip him for like probably a 27 first, and I'm doing that 10 times out of 10. I don't want anything to do with him. I'm using him as trade bait. I'm taking a first. I'm taking Pacheco, flipping him for another first, and turning Demont, Chubb in a second into 2 firsts. I will use that second to get a first if I have to on top of Pacheco too, just to get the 2 firsts, but I'll get it done.
Andy Aguilar just said he got a mid first for Judy and Mixon. I think if you're rebuilding, that is perfect because you take no one's paying a first for Mixon, but if you add Judy in there, adding Mixon and Judy is like I always talk about. You polish up that turd sandwich, you make it look real nice. You know what I mean? You're like, hey, look at this, You want to buy this? You know, it's that used car salesman mentality. You know, you just got to omit the little warts off of there. Connor Robinson might have been an overpay, but I can't get enough of Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels in a third or Kyler JSN in a second?
I'm gonna take Kyler.
I'm gonna take Daniels. I
think you can maybe get a 27 first for JSN, like 2 years out.
I would sell that.
Now. I would do that. I would turn that deal into Kyler, a first and a second for Daniels, and I would lovely do that like all day long.
This one here, Wes Frazier said he got Derrick Henry for 2 seconds and 2/3. Please sign me up all day long. Like that's what you got to get. Kyle Wynn says you helped me get Brees at the right point last week. Yes, I was saying it was Brees all week. Everybody got a discount. If you did, and even my buddy, you know, he jumped on here on the live stream. It worked out for me. I ended up getting the win. But had a great volume game last week. Who's another guy you think is the same that will take off and could get some from frustrated managers? So who's someone for you that could take off for you? And I'm going to go first because it's very relevant to the show. It's George Pickens. I don't think Justin Fields should have got benched. I mean, freaking 4-2, 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 5 rushing. I mean, he's the QB6 right now. For fantasy, like this is a kick in the balls beyond, like, you know, that video where they show all the monks like bashing each other with bricks in the junk. That's literally what this feels like to have Justin Fields disappear again. He became relevant. He's gone. Russell Wilson throws one of the prettiest deep balls. He's going to hook up with George Pickens this week. George Pickens will go over 80 yards and a touchdown. So he's the guy that I'm buying low, who I think this week is going to give you that shot in the arm. I also think you should buy low on Justin Fields because he's going to get this job back real soon because nobody wants those danger witch sandwiches.
Yeah, I like buying low on those 4 veteran wide receivers I talked about earlier: Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Davante Adams, Amari Cooper. I think those are 4 great. And Stephon Diggs, throw him in as the 5th. He's one of my most owned wide receivers right now. He's balling out, but I think buying that production, even if it's not a buy low, but you're still just buying into them because they're still cheaper than the production that they're going to give you. That's a good move for me. I like buying Travis Etienne, as crazy as that is to say, in Dynasty, because I think you can get him for a second, and you're getting a talent that's leaving that crappy-ass Jaguars team that has 2 of the worst coaches I've ever seen in my life that are going to get fired this year. And he's going to go get a bag somewhere else because he's proven that he's an elite running back. At this point, it's not even Tank Bigsby. It's just they're all bad. Like, none of the Jags running backs are ever going to be playable.
How does Etienne get hurt after Bigsby blows up and all of a sudden you're like, yo, it's Ernest Johnson season. Like, fire Doug Peterson. They need a shot in the arm. Snoog, you were talking about
they're
veterans.
Ruining Travis Etienne. It pisses me off.
You kept saying Travis, and I just had the Kelsey mixed cereal this morning. But Travis Kelce is a huge buy because they didn't add a wide receiver. So Juju, everybody wants him to be relevant. I think that was a little bit more of a anomaly game. Travis Kelce is going to be the tight end 1 the rest of the season for me. Him, Kittle, and Bowers are above everybody else. But I think the fact that they didn't get Davante and they didn't get Amari, and there's no one really out there that is in that trade market is huge for Travis Kelce. I mean, I think that's really something that we need to focus in on. Dynasty P. Rivers, I love it. A little Phillip Rivers look. A.J. Brown and Bucky or Odunze in an early to mid
AJB.
25 first.
Ooh, early?
Early to mid. So here's the thing, right? You have to be smart with that. If it's mid, and this is what I always say, Snoog, if this is mid, this is fair. If this is early, it's a doomsday. So it's like if you're rebuilding, that's what you want, right? You want to offer trades where you're like, this is fair if it's worst case scenario, but best case scenario, man, we turn this into a doomsday and Ashton Junty. We turn this into, so if you're contending, I'm okay with Bucky and AJ Brown. If you're not, I'm flipping that, and I love that one right there.
Speaking back to some wideouts or buy lows we're talking about in Dynasty, quarterback position, Matt Stafford, Aaron Rodgers. They're, especially if you're looking for that QB3, or you have like a young QB like Justin Herbert and he's just not producing at all for you, and you need that veteran producer, and you got like a Josh Allen, a Justin Herbert, and Herbert's just really just tanking down with like 15 points. Go buy Aaron Rodgers, go buy Matt Stafford. You should in every league anyways. Get your QB3 locked in, a guy that's going to give you 20-plus points per game with spike weeks, with all these elite weapons, and two guys that, especially in 6-point passing. So those are two guys that I think they're cheaper than a mid to early second that you can get them for. So two guys to add to the list as well.
I love it. Chan Hughes just asked a good one. He said, what are you doing with Pollard as a rebuilder? Need to get creative because nobody's giving a first. And Snoog, that happens sometimes, right? Like Tony Pollard has been low-key fantastic. He's played 5 games. 4 of them he's been over 15 fantasy points. The one he wasn't was the one I was at, and Will Levis kind of held him back, but he has been fantastic. He's top 10 in broken tackles and yards created and yards per route run. I think Tony Pollard really has rejuvenated things of what we think in his dynasty stock, but no one's going to pay it first. So what you got to do is you got to polish that thing up. You got to say, hey, I'm going to add a second. And Snoog, when I add a second to Tony Pollard, I don't care if it's the 201. There's if it's a chance that it'll be a mid first, right? Because the gap between 201 and 105, if you told me, this past year that you could give Keon Coleman and Tony Pollard to get Brock Bowers, you do that. And next year is going to be similar. The top 5 are going to be elite. So if it's something that can get into 5 to 8, I would add a second. The other thing you do is you start to take the time this year where you're like, all right, who do I have that's now relevant? Who can I move into this piece? This past week, I sold Trey Sermon in a third for a second. I sold Antonio Gibson in a third for a second. Those are the kind of moves you got to make on a rebuilder all the time. Try to put yourself into that area. Cole Warzella says maybe the Tajay injury will give him a bigger workload. I think Pollard is a guy that this week he's an RB1 for me. I have him in that 12 to 15 range. And I think Tajay Spears is a buy. And I think Tony Pollard is a buy as well, because this offense, they're going to change up soon. Will Levis is looking really bad. This is your last chance to sell out on Will Levis. But if Mason Rudolph starts, I think they have a better chance than it's an offense.
Yeah, definitely. I love that as well.
Trevor Sildecki, 12 team, 1/2 PPR, 1 quarterback. So we don't play a lot of this format, but Pickens, Wilson, and a pair of seconds are Justin Jefferson. Yeah, like that's the thing. Everybody's like, Dad, you and Snoog always talk about
1-on-1 quarterback.
100%. That's not even debatable for me. Jefferson, if you take, what if it was Pickens, Wilson in a first? In one Jefferson. Quarterback, I would do it. So like, what's the gap between Garrett Wilson and Justin Jefferson if you're trying to tier up? 2 firsts?
I'd say so.
An early first,
too late,
and a late
too
first?
late, or an early.
Too late, or 1 early, or even a mid and a second. Okay, here's one we got. We just got one in with Davante Adams. Bobby, that's at B Amendola, just sent one in. Davante in the third, or McLaurin and Mooney?
Davante in the third. I don't know though.
Terry's
been balling.
Terry's been fantastic. I think if this is start 3 wide receivers,
I'm taking Mooney and Terry if it is.
Yeah,
Davante definitely. Davante has the highest ceiling for sure. That's tough. I haven't heard a lot about Terry, despite how good he's been.
We got Rai Carrizales says Kamara and or a 25 first and second.
Taking the picks.
Any pick, any first. Come on, if it's anything after or before 109, I'm taking the pick. At this point, with the way the Saints offense looked, I would probably take any first. And I know that sounds a little bit crazy. Some of you guys keep saying, hey, answer our questions on Twitter on here. please post them on here so we can get with it. Make sure you guys can even do that super chat so we know we're in there. We're trying to answer as many questions as possible. Snoog and I love you guys, but we can't hit everybody's. Would you trade? This is from Drew Barticoa or whatever. Would you trade Chase Brown for Jordan Mason as a CMC owner in redraft? I would take Jordan Mason. I mean, I know he got banged up. It sounds like it's an AC joint, so it's only going to be. I think he'll play this week. This podcast has gone from AC Slater to Slave by the Bell to the AC joint of Jordan Mason, but I'm taking it and I'm buying CMC now. Now's the time. Now I'm just. I gave late first and Ramondre Stevenson, and I was like, that's fine. Even if Christian McCaffrey doesn't come out, I didn't lose anything. It's nothing crazy. But I think Christian McCaffrey could be that shot in the arm that puts you over the top for a championship. You know what I mean? Now's that time to – we waited long enough. Let's do it. Border Ruffian wants to know Kyle Pitts, and the team's name is Adams Assholes. Kyle Pitts in a second, or the Bad News Bears gets Dalton Kincaid?
Kincaid.
I think
Pitts. I don't want Pitts.
We're at a point where I don't have Kyle Pitts on any team. I just want him off my roster.
I don't own him anywhere.
Crazy Connor says, love the stuff, guys. Great content. And he gets it because he probably doesn't have any Kyle Pitts either. We want to make sure we trade as much Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts and a late first or Sam Laporta.
Pitts. I low-key don't want any Laporta either.
I
think I'm taking the first over Laporta.
Pitts or Kittle?
Kittle.
Ingram in a second or Pitts?
Ingram
looked good. And I think a lot of people were looking at things the wrong way. They're like, again, Brian Thomas Jr. is affected by Evan Ingram. No, it's just the way the game script went. They got up early. They absolutely got curb stomped by the Bears. By the way, whoever the Jaguars are playing, fire up that quarterback, fire up those wide receivers. They are giving it the most. The only guy that didn't benefit is the guy from our jersey right over here, DJ Moore. Our first winner did not collect his jersey. Now we did another drawing. SoCal Saluski, you won this jersey. I know you're gonna love it. Make sure you guys reach out. That way we know that you are wanting this particular item. Next one. All right. Julio Sepulveda says, am I good with the following? Wide receivers are Cooper, Downs, Waddle, Harrison, Thomas Jr., or should I trade Moore, Metcalf, Shaheed, rest of the schedule? That's a little bit confusing question. Snoop, when you have so many wide receivers, let's just look at that. You have 7 good wide receivers. Now's the time to consolidate, right? We've been playing all year talking about depth and getting through bye weeks, but I think now's the time to consolidate.
Yeah, if you hit on a few big guys, like if you hit on Darnell Mooney, you hit on a Cortland Sutton, you hit on one of those wideouts. It's just a Godwin, a guy in the middle to later rounds. It's a Diggs, especially in Dynasty, that's just balling out right now. The best thing you can do is take a Mooney and a Chris Godwin or Mooney and one of those guys and flip them and get a superstar wide receiver. I mean, Godwin's been outstanding. He's honestly a hold right now in all formats, but
for sure,
consolidating is always something I like to do, especially if I have a weak running back and I have 2 stud wideouts. I'll take one of my wideouts and I'll take one of my running backs that's weaker and I'll flip them for a stud running back in an insulated type trade. So that's another thing that I like to do as well.
Fluffy wants to know, he was just offered Olave, Brian Thomas Jr., and Ford for Garrett Wilson, Javante, and Vidal.
I'm taking Brian Thomas Jr.
It's Brian Thomas Jr. Yeah.
Javante and Vidal are just valueless to me. I don't care for either.
I am trying to, right now, process over results. Vidal or Garendo, add a third and get a second now. Just do it. Just if you can. Yeah, same. A lot of people are asking about Sean Tucker as well. I mean, yes, great waiver wire pickup. If you're in Dynasty, you throw every fab dollar you have left out there because you make that case to go out and get him. But I am personally, I think a lot of people think that he's going to become the RB1 there. Like Dan Fouts was asking here, what's his outlook in Dynasty? What is he worth in fab? If it's Dynasty, I'm just dumping everything I have left because you don't get a lot of opportunities to really get guys in your dynasty fab.
Yeah.
If it's a deeper league, but I don't think Bucky's the RB1 here. Rashad's the RB2, but he's earned himself some carries. I think he's just, I would go ahead and flip him.
I wouldn't
That's
be
what we try
shocked
to do.
if Sean Tucker ends up being better than Bucky Irving. Like, I don't think Bucky Irving's special at all as a talent.
I think you can get a late first for Bucky still.
Oh, I would absolutely take that. I wouldn't even debate that. Bucky's a good player. He's a rotation back. He's not a starting caliber. He's not a guy that I'm like, he's my starting running back. Let's go. No. Like if I'm like the fan of that franchise.
But you don't mind him as your flex.
He's one of those guys that's gonna get replaced by a Quinshon Judkins, a Travion Henderson, a Caleb Johnson, one of those stud running backs in 2025 is gonna come in, get day 2 draft capital, and Bucky's gonna be valueless. Like those are the type of running backs I try to avoid. Ride them and then flip them at a right point.
Yeah.
I avoided Rachaad White for a reason. We bought into him. We were high on him as a prospect. He gave us the results. We flipped high. We turned him into Kamara, Mixon, Derrick Henry plus after last year, and it was a win. That's how you got to treat those type of random day 3 or late day 2 running backs that have a good year, especially if they're kind of like a shaky talent. You flip them.
Here's a question that we could probably spend 2 years talking about, but how do y'all assess youth versus upside versus production?
Taking Godwin over JSN 10 times.
Godwin versus JSN in Dynasty. Does it come down to the default answer? Contender lean Godwin, rebuilder lean JSN. Mind unpacking the nuance here. And I think you have to just look at what have you done for me lately. It's very easy to say the contender's taking Godwin and the rebuilder's taking JSN, but in sometimes you almost look at it, for me, Snoog, is my rebuilder. I might also want to keep Chris Godwin because JSN has mightily struggled. I might want to flip Godwin for a first plus instead of JSN. And I think what people really struggle with is people will say, well, I got a couple of DMs. Amari Cooper, should I be trading him for Quentin Johnston now? No. Should I be trading him for Ricky Purcell? No, we're not just saying flip him for anything. We're just saying it's the right guys. And you and I do that all the time in the Patreon Discord, is we're like, hey, this is the guy you're buying. We're telling you to buy this guy. Like I was telling you to buy Brees last week. Like we were trying to tell you to buy Pickens, buy all these veterans. It's all about timing. So, on a short answer, that's what it is. It's all about timing. Long answer, maybe we'll do an entire pod like that. Got one here for a contender from LAFC Dad. Mixon in a 4th or Chase Brown in a 3rd?
Mixon.
Dude.
Sell Chase Brown.
Yeah. Chase Brown has had a couple nice weeks in a row. Would you 212? Is it a late 2 or is it a mid 2?
Yeah,
Any 2?
I think you're getting a mid for a starting running back on the Bengals if he takes the role for sure.
Let's see. Michael Scarn. He's got Jamar Chase, and this is a very similar question. Pickens, Wilson in a 3rd. So before it was Pickens, Wilson in 2 seconds. I'm taking Chase here again. Metcalf. And hold on. Next one from Joe Booton. Reed or Chase Brown and a 25 first. He says he's competing. Yeah, absolutely. I'm taking that. That's what you do with Chase Brown, right? Is you add him to a first and you get something like a Jaden Reed. You add him to a 2nd and you get something like Chris Godwin. That's how you utilize. And Snoog, you and I never own players like Chase Brown. I have him, but I flip him. We drafted him in the late 3rd, just like we were talking about Tank Bigsby. We drafted him, Braylon Allen, those guys. We draft them. They're a means to an end. They're not a guy that we're like, I'm playing him every week, because the chance that they turn into the next Kyron Williams is slim to none.
Yeah.
T. Higgins, Jerome Ford, and 2 seconds or AJ Brown.
AJ Brown.
Yeah, it sounds like everybody's
a good buy in Dynasty though. He's been playing great. Out targeting Jamar Chase since he's been back. Touchdowns haven't been falling his way as much as it has for Jamar. But you had a touchdown or 2 in the mix there, and he's averaging 20 points per game since he's been back. So that's something to keep an eye on, because he's been very consistent, 15, 14, 29. He's getting those big weeks too. Burrow's playing lights out. Burrow's going to have gross stats this year because that defense sucks. The team is just a disaster. It's
I'm glad you brought that
literally
up.
the Cowboys. It's literally going to be
It's-
Dak. Burrow's going to be stat padding like a Dak, playing from behind, throwing the ball 50, 60 times a game, and it's going to be Jamar and T. Higgins volume up the roof. If you can
What's the
flip
gap?
Waddle for T. Higgins, I'm doing it and getting a second on top. If you can flip Ayuk for T. Higgins plus, I'm doing it. I'm keeping Devontae Smith, but like Ayuk and Waddle are two guys I like tearing off of in Dynasty right now to go to like a T. Higgins or just get a DK Metcalf or someone like that.
Mahomes or Burrow in a late first?
Burrow.
Mid second. I think that's where it is now. Like I think
Mahomes,
if you take
all the sketchy injuries with Burrow.
If you're a contender, and you tell me I can get Joe Mixon and Joe Burrow for Patrick Mahomes, I'm gonna smash it.
Yeah.
If I can get Joe Mixon and Travis Kelce for Mahomes, I'm gonna do it. Like those are the type of moves. Theo Darling says Kyler in a second or Mahomes. That's Mahomes. I think we have at least a late first gap now. Kyler is kind of separated out the other way. Scarface, Amari or Adams, rest of season. You're a little late on this one. We were both going with Adams. I love it though. Kemba Walker Burner, and this is I was trying to get to this question for you earlier. Cooper Kupp, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Braylon Allen in a second, or it looks like 3 firsts. I mean, this is the type of Amon-Ra's a smash. Amon-Ra's the second easily. We try to answer as many of these as we can. But you guys, if you guys get in there with the super chat, we can definitely answer it. Snoog and I have been doing a ton of those. I'm going to do one more trade question here, and then we're going to kind of close out. Give me 1 second. Last one. Oh, it's not sent in there, but I got this one underneath. It's even better. Snoog put it in there. www.patreon.com/smash accept. There it is. We got someone send it in. Julio Sepulveda. Juju and Downs for DJ Moore and Metcalf? Okay, hold on a second. We got a typo on that one for sure. I'm smashing DJ Moore and Metcalf.
That's a cow.
Like that guy, the other guy, he's going to like crawl into a hole and die when it's done because he just got owned. Guys, this was a fun show. I'm glad we could, jump in here, give you guys a little bit of insight on Amari, on Adams, on Fields, a little bit the whole way across the board. Try to let you guys know what's going on. Make sure you guys hit us up on Twitter. I'm at Dynasty Dad FF. He's at FFSnoog. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out in the Patreon Discord. All of these different areas you have to absolutely stop guessing on trades and start smashing. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and enjoy the process. I think we